Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dulta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world, and we will be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. More and more now, I'm getting guests coming on the podcast because they've been listening, which is great because, they tell me exactly what they're enjoying or what we need to do more of. And I'd really love it if some of you could reach out to me and tell me what it is that you like about the podcast or what you think we could also do with it. Today's guest is Lee Diamant, or Lee Diamant, as he would be known in Essex, where he's from. He's living in Switzerland and he's been over there for about 16 years. So he had a really successful career in agency recruitment, working for Swiss Links, Randstad, and working his way right up the ladder to being quite senior with the Adecco group there. So he's kind of scaled the corporate ranks and he did it all right. And then he decided to set up a Director Eck. So he is the Director Eck for Switzerland. And we had a great chat about what his life in recruitment was like, why he set up a Director Eck, and, what's Switzerland like? What's it like to live there as an expat? It's a market I didn't know a lot about, but he kind of went through a lot of that. And he's a nice lad, and I wish him all the best. So I thought we would get him on here, share his story, and then I'm sure some of you will reach out to him about life in Switzerland. So over to Lee. Lee Diamant.
Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you. I don't even know what your first language is. Can I guess?
Go for it.
Is it German?
No.
Is it French?
No, hell no.
But it's a French name you have, right?
No, actually, the name comes originally from Amsterdam.
Ah.
So when my ancestry were cutting diamonds or selling diamonds, it actually came from there. So originally from Amsterdam. But believe it or not, I'm actually born and bred in the UK.
Well, there you go. You're born and bred in the UK.
Exactly.
Well, so let's jump right into the story, Lee. You're based in Zurich at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up moving from the UK?
I guess the same reason why many people move to another country. I met a girl who was Swiss in the UK actually, and we dated back and forth between Essex actually, where I'm from, and Zurich. And after about 3 years, I finally took the plunge to actually move over to Switzerland. I thought, 1 year, experience another country, another culture, why not? That's now 16 years ago.
Wow, 16 years ago. What age were you when you went over?
So I was 23 when I came over.
Wow, young man.
Yeah, not anymore, but it's been a very long time. Obviously, together with my now wife, we're celebrating 20 years together. In a couple of months, so
and you speak English almost like a native.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
I swear to God, I thought you're definitely because you kind of have a bit of intonation in your accent. You must be used to slowing down your pitch for people all the time.
Absolutely. I was going to say your English isn't too bad either. But that's ultimately it. When you're in another country and you're constantly speaking to people where English isn't their mother tongue, you start to kind of speak pidgin English as they call it, or really slow it down, clear it up.
Joey Barton English is the common meme, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But if you can imagine, if I came with kind of Essex a bit of a Cockney twang, I don't think anybody here would understand me. So
No, that's true. So did you get into recruitment over there? Was that
yeah.
you? Because you must have started your professional career, really. Well, when you first moved over, did you have to kind of go into the hospitality stuff until you got like some language skills, or like what was your early journey like?
Yeah, so I mean, my early journey in the UK was in tourism. So I was selling flights and holidays all over the world, in Australia, New Zealand, and the like. So actually, when I moved to Switzerland, that was the most natural industry for me to get into, because one of the challenging things about Switzerland is they love a piece of paper. They love a degree, education, and that's held in very high regard. And I never.
Mainland Europe in general, though, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, certainly, I'd say here in Switzerland, it was very important at the time. And if I'm honest, I struggled to find something outside of tourism, but it was what I knew. It's a fantastic industry. So that actually I joined Kuoni, who are one of the largest tourism companies in the world, and it's actually a Swiss company.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you did that for a couple of years, and then the wonderful world of recruitment opened their arms to you, like they do to everybody.
Absolutely, the warm, fuzzy feeling you get when you step into the industry. Yeah.
And you joined a company called Swiss Links. I've
Yes.
seen them as a brand that have spread across internationally in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey there.
So I had really a fantastic journey there. I think that's ultimately why I was there for 6 years. When I started as a recruiter. They clearly explained to me that's where you need to start your career in the business. And it absolutely made sense to me. So I started as a recruiter and was fortunate to jump straight into a hot desk for IT contracting within the financial services here in Zurich.
Right.
And,
okay. By the sounds of it, there's a lot of hot desks over there.
There is. It's a fantastic market, and we can talk a bit more about that for sure. But yeah, it was also a really good time in IT recruitment. It was before the MSPs had come in, so all of the business development you were doing was without anyone in between you and the hiring manager,
Lovely.
which was fantastic. And I started as a recruiter. I had a very, very quick and strong start. So I think in my first 3 months, placed 7 people, 15 in the first 5 months, and which was really really great at the time. And after 5 months, actually, my boss, who was managing the desk, decided to leave, and that created what was a fantastic opportunity for me. And the company had seen the passion, the drive, and obviously the success that I'd had in those 5 months. And they trusted me to take over responsibility for one of the key accounts. And it's still today one of their key accounts. And from there, went from strength to strength. Really a fantastic education and way into the business. I think actually 2-3 months into me taking over the account, it was a very hard time for UBS, and they went through rate reductions, reducing the number of contractors. So that was also a really tough learning for me at the time, but a great one to help me understand more about the business and how to look after contractors and manage that whole thing.
And you were there for almost 6 years, which is a really good stint. What was it called? What's Swiss Links like? Are they a boutique? Are they like something bigger than a boutique? Are they somewhere in between a boutique and a major?
I would still call them absolutely a boutique. They do have an office in Dubai, in Singapore. Also recently built a nearshore sourcing team in Poland as well. But ultimately, yeah, they're around 20 to 30 people locally, very specialized in IT and finance, and they're fantastic at it. So they have a great reputation, and I think this is maybe one of the big differences compared to other markets, that generally on the local market, it's more the boutiques here in Zurich, especially, who have dominated and led the market as opposed to the larger players.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's down to the levels of quality, to the way that the businesses are set up, and the expectations of clients here in Switzerland.
I think it's also like, areas that are quite cut off to the rest. Well, like I would always think of Switzerland as just a wee bit aloof to do, like compared to maybe like some other major cities. Whenever I recruited in Perth or in Calgary, those relationships were worth much more than what it is in New York or San Francisco, where like people are just so mad into products, so somebody can come in and just scale up real quick. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think I would still say it's the case today. There's been a lot of companies and the large internationals who have invested here, who have, tried to grow the business and develop the business. But I would still say that a lot of the smaller boutiques are the stronger players here locally. There's always exceptions in different business lines.
And speaking of a giant business, somebody came along and managed to tempt you out of them, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. So after 6 years, I was headhunted by Randstad to build up their professionals business here. And for me at the time, I was running a contractor book, more than 40 people. It was, how hard it is yourself to attract people with a contractor book to move to another company. For me, the driver was I wanted to manage more people. And at the time I was leading 3-4 people, but I knew that was always going to be around the maximum I could achieve. So Randstad came and tempted me over to them to lead the Zurich office. And I was managing originally 12 people, which I grew to actually 20 people over the 2.5 years that I was there.
Okay, interesting. So that really scaled during that time. Let me jump into when you first started managing people at Swisslinks. What language were you doing it in?
In English.
In English. And were the people under you happy for that?
Yeah, ultimately, it's quite an international environment. Swisslinks probably has something like 17, 18 different nationalities, which that's one of the unique things about Zurich and Switzerland in general. You end up in such an international, diverse organization wherever you go in the recruitment business. And there's all different languages around, and it makes it really exciting and really different to other locations. So the people I was managing were from France, from Bulgaria, from Switzerland, from all over the place. So it wasn't a problem, but yeah.
Which languages have you focused on yourself to pick up?
So I speak now fluent Swiss German, which is Swiss German is a funny language, Doctor. I tell you, when I'm trying to explain it to people, I guess the easiest way would be compared to German. It's the equivalent of a drunk Irishman speaking English compared to an Englishman speaking English. It's another language.
How racist.
Well, I thought
maybe it might be simpler to compare it to Flemish.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's really a whole nother language. And, the Swiss appreciate so much people that make an effort anyway just to learn to learn German or French, let alone to actually learn Swiss German. So that's helped me massively over the years.
So you scaled up with them, and then you went to a very similar brand in terms of just another giant. Well, how did was that to give you a broader remit in what you were recruiting for? Was it a bit of a step up again, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the step when I joined Adecco at the time, they had a very big vision of what they wanted to do with the professionals business. It started with us rebranding to Spring Professional, one of the largest professional brands of the Adecco group. And for me, that was, I'd say, almost 2 steps up. So it would have been the natural progression at Randstad, but because of the scale and size of Adecco in Switzerland, being a Swiss company, it was almost 2 steps up for me from a career point of view. And the strategy and the way that they wanted to take the business forward resonated a lot more with me.
So here we are now. We are quite a bit into your career. You've built up all this good knowledge of IT and IT businesses and processes and procedures, and you know how to build a company, and you decide to set up a Director Eck.
to go completely the opposite direction.
It's not too late, man. Honestly, it's not too late.
Listen, life is there's many years ahead of me in my career. No, yeah, I decided after 11 years of being in IT and the other areas that I wanted to start my own business in recruitment. I think it's the type of person I am, from an entrepreneurial personality, ambitious. But it was, I mean, why Rector Eck? Yourself, you came from IT. I mean, why did you go into Rector Eck rather than going into IT?
I think I probably didn't have the same. Firstly, I didn't have the same depth of experience as you have, but I also didn't have it all within the one location as well. And I probably didn't know how I could win business as an IT recruiter at that point, while not being in a local vicinity. And if I'm perfectly honest, I got absolutely burnt out of the market in Calgary when it crashed. So I remember thinking, like, I need a break from recruiting IT people and from the intensity that's involved in IT recruitment. And then because Charlotte was an internal recruiter at one of the agencies for a little bit, we kind of got a taste for what that was and a bit of a buzz for moving people internationally. And we just kind of cracked on with it for a bit. And at the start, it was a lifestyle business. So we did that for a little bit. And then by the time we kind of got serious about it, it was like, oh, well, actually, we're too far into get into what I originally said. And here we are 4 years later. So
fantastic.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd necessarily change what I did, but I probably would like to evolve my IT practice into being an international practice where we help professionals move abroad and not just recruiters. Because it's a funny game. You've literally just had a cup of coffee in it so far. So
Absolutely.
So walk me through it.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, first of all, IT was something that I'd done, something that I'd experienced. So why I went for Rector Eck, it was also a lifestyle choice from my side. Being part of the leadership team of Adecco.
Like, you must have been under a lot of pressure throughout those years.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it comes naturally with the job. There's always pressure for numbers and sales at Randstad, at Swisslinks too. It's just the nature of our business. I was fortunate that in general the numbers were always very, very positive where I was, and I was able to grow and improve the business. So I think for me, in the role at Adecco, I wasn't as happy as what I'd been previously. I wasn't as close to the people, as close to the clients. I was much more involved in strategy, in administrative reporting, things like that come with a leadership role, and started to go further and further away from the things that I really enjoyed about recruitment, which was connecting with people, which was making a difference, advising people, and that's why I wanted to make a change into Rector Eck. And also because really recruitment is something I'm so passionate about, and I want to be a promoter of the business in a very positive way. Dealing with recruiters, it's the hardest thing, but I love the people that I'm dealing with. Here I am speaking with you on a podcast. I'm dealing with managers, recruiters, sources, having passionate exchanges about recruitment every single day. And I couldn't have that when I was in IT. I wasn't the IT expert. I was the recruitment expert.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? You feel it almost sounds like you can be more authentic in terms of bringing your own experience and your own story to the table because you are what you're selling.
Absolutely. And I've hired, I've coached, I've developed exactly the types of profiles that my clients are looking for. So before, when I was recruiting IT, I was the recruitment expert. Now I can sit across the table with a CEO, with an MD, with a recruiter, a sourcer, whatever it might be. And I feel I really understand what they do. And therefore, I can really understand where to place them and how to guide them in their career.
And that's the easy stuff, right? Do you know what the hard stuff is? See, right now, everybody's your best mate.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you start figuring out that some people aren't as good at closing recruiters as others are. Some aren't as committed. Some teams just aren't the right place to be constantly putting in. You're going to start getting a wee bit more knowledge of all the inner workings of who fits where, and because you're in a relatively small space, you're going to end up stepping on people's toes. How are you going to avoid that? And what type of, like, have you picked out who you want to work with, and what have you based that on?
So it's a really interesting question. And, you know, when I started the business,
it's based on 4 years of pain, my friend.
Yeah. When I started the business, I thought, bloody hell, how do I decide so early in the business where my hunting grounds are, where my clients are? And I think some of it's happened naturally. As you said, I'm only 6 months in right now, so it's still developing. So there are companies that I respect where I know the owners or the MDs, and I think to myself, if I would stay in recruitment on that side, I would like to work for this company. They tend to be more of the startups, the boutiques, the smaller organizations. And these are the ones that I have built already very strong commitment with, and I love working with and supplying talent to. If I tell you something funny, I actually called up a few days ago a company or a manager in a company to say to him, look, over the last few months, I haven't had a candidate that I felt that I could represent to your environment because I didn't think the environment was the right fit for the candidates I'm speaking to. So I wanted to give you a heads up that actually I'm going to start approaching your people, which was an interesting conversation.
And what did he say?
Have. Actually, he took it very well. He kind of said, well, look, you know, fair enough. I understand our competition every day hunting our people. And rightly so, he said, we need to make sure our people don't want to leave.
Why did you call him up?
Fair play. Because that's the type of market that Zurich and Switzerland is. It's such a small market. Everybody knows everybody in one way or another. And reputation and credibility and trustworthiness is so important. And I didn't just simply want to start approaching his people, because then he's going to have a negative impression of me, thinking even that we're working together.
He's gonna have a negative impression when you start pulling people out either way.
Yeah, but at least I do it transparently. At least nobody can say that I did it in a unprofessional way.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would be unprofessional anyway if you did it. But I get it. You're concerned because you're in a fishbowl.
Absolutely.
Where, like, I mean, we work every market basically abroad. So I kind of, like, you know, there's people I obviously wouldn't want to piss off, and people we've got terms and activity. But if we're not doing business, then, you know, I think it's game ball. Some people are, if you see recruiter groups like online, they can be quite, I've never heard anybody do that before anyway. So it's a good insight into what life's like there. And when you're structuring out your business, I think it's probably something that I probably should have done was to focus on, and I will do, was to focus on internal recruitment and that side as well as agency. Is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a key part of my strategy and the offerings that I have to candidates. You know yourself, I put recruiters into two pools. There's the people that want to continue their career in recruitment and grow, and there's people who, after some time, say, I want to go in-house. I want to go into talent acquisition, HR, and take my career in that way. And I always think back to when I started in recruitment and thinking of the most reusability of the candidates. People who have a niche and can send one candidate to several positions are in the best possible situation. And I think that's what the business model has. With my network, of course, over the last 11 years, but I can also place people into internal recruitment positions as well.
Yeah, no, that's good, especially because you built up those relationships with those internal recruiters. And you know, when you're setting up your business now, like, what does your strategic approach look like? Like, how are you making the most out of your day?
Well, 6 months in, it's still very, very candidate driven. It's our market anyway. I'm trying to really work hard on my personal brand on LinkedIn.
What do you want it to say?
I wanted to say that, first of all, for people outside of Switzerland, that Zurich and Switzerland in general is one of the best places in the world to be in recruitment.
Okay, let's jump into that. Why?
Sure.
Why?
So, first of all, it's one of the highest standards of living in the world. It's always rated in one of the top 2, 3 positions worldwide as the highest standard of living. We have one of the highest salaries, I think the highest average salary per person worldwide. Short commutes, so 30 minutes is the average commute that people have. You have, as a recruiter, we have very high percentages and fees. Companies would rather pay...
What percentages and fees?
Well, it's on the market, in the professionals market, it's between 20 to 25%, let's say. And clients would rather pay a little bit more and have the right talent and a fantastic service than constantly push down and talk about fees, which is very special.
Yeah, that is nice. What do you love about living there?
Everything. It's the outdoor life. I love snowboarding in the mountains. The weather. I mean, we have a real summer, a real winter. It's I can't see my car for snow today. It's brilliant. I think I have 2 kids. I know you're a father yourself, and it's a great place to bring up children. And my kids walk to school from about the age of 5, 6 years old. So it's very, very safe. When it comes to the recruitment side of things, we have so many companies headquarters here, whether it's life science, so the likes of Novartis, Roche. You have obviously in financial services, UBS, Credit Suisse, have a huge Google office here. There's such a fantastic recruitment market and opportunity for people in professionals. And I think that's what makes it very, very attractive.
How do you, who can get a job in Switzerland? Do you need to have like German or to be able to speak French or?
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest demand from my clients at the moment. But I always say if somebody is a fantastic salesperson in English and they have a credible experience, meaning not changing every 1 year between different companies, they have a solid stint at a company, they can show consistency in performance. English will be enough for many. You just
turned down half of the UK market, or probably even 80%.
Which is fine. I'm looking for the 20%.
Yeah.
And so are my clients. Yeah.
And tell me, is it just Zurich? Is that where it's happening? What's Geneva like?
Geneva's the same. I mean, again, I would say between the French part and German part of Switzerland, it's like 2 different countries. It really is. Different cultures, different mentality.
Geneva's the French part, is it?
It is. And a lot of the clients there, I mean, French, I would say, is much more important there than German is in Zurich. So it's, it is very French from a style point of view. They negotiate a lot more. So when I was talking about percentages, in the French part, probably the percentages are more like 20%, and then maybe even lower. So even that kind of divide in the middle financially can make a difference.
That's interesting, isn't it?
It's just a different culture. I guess the French culture are much more used to negotiating, pushing for price, compared to the German-speaking part, or at least that's my experience.
Yeah, when I lived there, I mean between the Dutch side and the French side.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's with the different languages there, and it can be really two different countries. But again, in Geneva, in Lausanne, in these areas, there's huge in Geneva, huge banking scene there. IT across the whole country is massive. So I think, yeah, it's a very good market. And what I've seen over the years, when there is a recession, when there is a downturn, Switzerland stays in a bubble.
Mm.
I remember in 2009 when the markets were really, really tough. I remember reading something saying Switzerland is shopping through the recession, meaning the Swiss had spent more money on shopping during that time than they had the previous year, even though it was a recession at the time.
So no temptation to move back to the UK, huh?
No. I mean, my parents would love it if I would, but no temptation for me. If you look at my website, it's like a tourism promotion for Switzerland.
Yeah, and I think to brand yourself as Mr. Switzerland from the UK is probably a good thing, isn't it? You know, you're going to be like the recruitment beacon there.
Yeah, I hope so, and but especially on the local market here as well. Yeah.
So you mentioned you want to, like, a lot of it was about lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that, like, what's your vision for your Director Eck business? Like, I take it you've got a home office at the moment?
Actually, I work from home once a week, and the other 4 days I have an office right in the heart of Zurich. And I'm sharing that office, which was something I wanted to ask you, because my perception was you work from home, but I need other people around me. I'm such a social person. I need that contact during the week. I couldn't simply just work from home. So I actually there's 5 other people in the office where I am. And for me, that makes a big, big difference.
Yeah.
Also meeting candidates locally, having a confidential private meeting room where people can come and see me. But you work from home, or what's your model?
I work from home. I've had an office for the last couple of years in the local village here, but that was just because we were having kids. And then, like, I've renovated the house, so I have a nice home office now. It's funny, you know, it's a good question. I think I'm probably ready to base myself in a WeWork office, and do that. But I'm pretty comfy as well, so
I don't know. You're a better man than me. I need that social interaction around me. I'm stimulated from it. Sharing successes, sharing frustrations. That's important to me as well.
Yeah. I wonder, is it something I do? Like, I mean, I just don't know, honestly. At the moment, it's working for me right now, but half the problem is I'm in this little village, which is where my wife is from, and it's a nice little place. It's called Arundel. It's not far from the south coast, and it's all right. But like, Brighton is 40 minutes away, so, you know, by the time I add up that commute and stuff, I'm losing quite a lot of the day, as opposed to just being able to work in here and make that happen. So what
I get it.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence with it. That's what I'm trying to say. Part of what we're thinking now, the next stage, is because the podcast has gone so well, we've got a trip to New York booked at the end of the month, and we're going to go over there, and we're booked out to meet clients and record live podcasts with them and with recruiters who are in the market to discuss what it's like for them over there, and what that transition and the process and everything to do with that, and all the people we've worked with some of the people that we've worked with over the past 4 years. And then I'm booked to do something similar in Brighton. I'm going to record a round table with a recruitment entrepreneur who's had a massive exit, a really famous trainer, a recruitment lawyer, and we're going to film that and do that. And then I think that the destination marketing piece is where I see the next bit, and I could either put money into getting an office, or I could put money into doing that, and that's where I'm kind of tossing up things, you know. It's the same with when I staff internally. Like, I could hire somebody who's a 360 salesperson and they need a lot of guidance and a lot of hand holding, or I could hire a VA and give them stuff I don't want to do, so I can focus on the creative and the high touch point stuff that I do want to do. And it's just working out what works for you, you know, because I was talking to Roy Ripper, he was on the podcast. It was just a couple of days ago, and he was a brilliant guest.
I heard it. Actually, had Roy over in Switzerland back in 2009, I think it was, when I was at Swisslink. So we got him in for a couple of days for a training. So it was funny to hear his voice on the podcast. Yeah.
Did you enjoy the podcast on him?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Interesting conversation for sure. Has such an engaging, passionate, energetic personality. It really comes through.
It resonated how much he puts happiness over everything else. Like,
yeah.
And he didn't seem like, sometimes, you can, like, he could be if he had went a different direction, he by all rights could have had 4 or 5 massive exits. That's what I got from the interview. Mm-hmm. But he seems perfectly happy with the route that he went and what he's up to and all of that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Like, he's been in the industry a considerable amount of time, and he seems quite happy with his choices that he made, and still seems to be going down that road. So I enjoyed doing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I suppose I want to do more of those type of things, like doing a live event with Roy and a few others, and perhaps we can get over to you and do something with the local market there after a wee ski trip.
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. As long as we can do it in the mountains and connect it with a few turns. Huh? We were talking about skiing the other day. So
lovely.
Yeah.
What other challenges do you have right now in your business? Like, because you're so early on, I know you've had big brands behind you, lots of structure. Like, what are you finding?
I mean, still, I guess it's really that attraction of candidates. I think we have it harder than any of our clients who are, even if it's niche skills in IT, I think finding recruiters, engaging with recruiters, that's really the biggest challenge right now. Getting into conversations with people, not because I want to find them another job, but I want to bring them into my network. I'd like to share some advice, to know who they are. And, if one day something comes from it, fantastic. And if not, I'm just happy to meet and connect with people in the industry. And I think that's the toughest part.
It is.
People seeing further than that first introduction,
I find it harder than IT recruitment, because I always thought in IT recruitment, the candidates had a clear vision on where they were going in their career, and like they'd worked so hard to get all the certifications and all the stuff that would bring them up to the certain level to get to consultancy, that then they get to the next one up and the next one up, whereas recruiters don't really see it like that. They very much are kind of sold into the industry to come in and do something, and then they're kind of brainwashed that this is the only place that does this and does it well, and everywhere else isn't good. So it's very hard to sell them on that until they're absolutely broken with the current environment. And I find that's tricky, because then by the time they're broken, they're applying everywhere, and they're not as good as they were. So it's really tough to catch them at the right time. And I find the international piece is nice, because they can be like, they'll message me and they'll say, look, not this year, it'll be next year, let's work towards it, and then we can start mapping that out and planning that.
I mean, I get that on the other side, where I'm bringing people from the UK or from Germany or Italy, France, wherever it might be, and I kind of envy you a little bit with the model of placing people overseas, because I think then you have a candidate who clearly has a goal of going somewhere else. It's interesting what you say about people catching people at the right time and people being burnt out. Some candidates that I speak to say, I want to go into internal recruitment because I've had enough of agency recruitment. And often, speaking with them and understanding how their journey in recruitment has gone, I sometimes feel that they've simply been at the wrong place, that their perception of how that role can look in other companies is actually a little bit skewed from their experience there, and that sometimes actually moving into a different environment would be the right thing, as opposed to going into internal recruitment. So
but they might just not have the bit between their teeth anymore as well. So like that could be, I think, like they could be just so burned by failing or feeling like they failed, that it's very hard, even if you put them into the right environment, to get it right. Like I don't know, it's a tough industry. It's tougher than people outside it realize, you know.
I mean, how do you deal with it when you have a candidate who's maybe not been so successful, and you're thinking to yourself that they have a potential, you would like to be able to share them with some of your clients? You know, how do you convince yourself that you believe that in another environment they can be successful, or how do you go about that?
I give them to another Rhetoric. I'm not lying.
So let me say this now. I don't want any CVs from you.
I have 22 other Rhetorics that I deal with for that. Look, I'm a bit of a snob. When I was an IT recruiter as well, I used to like working with the best people and getting them better jobs. And look, I'd probably make way more money if I just was able to kind of persuade the average guy in the room to go to the next average job. But I don't get a buzz out of that. Yeah. And I know people other people do work role specific things, and I don't. So I will, if somebody approaches me and I can't get them that job in New York or London or at one of the best places, then I'll say, well, here's how you can make this move happen in 3 years' time or in 2 years' time. But to start that, I'm probably not the right person for you. Here is Sam in London. Why don't you go speak to him? Or, you know, here's Chris in Liverpool. Why don't you go speak to him? And that's kind of the way I work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to work in the same way of judging whether or not I would want to hire the person myself.
Well, like I believe there's a job for everybody. I just don't know if I'm the Director Eck to represent everybody. Yeah, can you hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Incoming call cut through. Apologies for that. Okay. No, I really I try to think first of all whether I would hire the person for my business. You know, whether I would see potential, would I go through the process with them? Would they convince me? And if so, obviously that they will be able to convince my clients as well. So yeah, there's sometimes I always think, and I've seen it before, is why I asked the question, that someone, for example, who I know wasn't successful in their previous company, comes to a new company or came to work for me, for example, and was able to be successful. And sometimes I think to myself, okay, the person has the potential if they had the right manager, the right infrastructure around them.
Do you know what? It's not even about company though. Like I remember when I was at Robert Walters, and I got a hot desk and became a big biller because I got the right start, the right momentum, and the right training. And then the person next to me joined a crap manager on a crap desk with not much happening. They didn't do well, but then they went on to another agency and went through the ranks and flew at it. And both getting calls here.
Yeah, it's I'm still here. Yeah.
Some of it is it's really just down to the individual, how lucky they can be to meet that manager, to get that chance to work with somebody great. And it's hard. So it is hard to write somebody off and say, oh well, they're not quite good, but if maybe they've done that 3 times or 4 times, or
of course,
if there's a pattern there, then you know that just means they're probably not dealing with adversity well. They're not digging their feet in, and I would like you know, make a mistake, maybe even make 2. But whenever I see 3 or 3 especially 3 in a row, or 3 in 4 years, I'm starting to see a pattern, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are the kind of profiles on the local market here I can't sell.
No.
Yeah. Very interesting.
What profiles can you sell if somebody was from overseas?
So let's say in demand. is IT, engineering, life science. Talk about professional recruitment, finance. What people need to have is a proven track record. People with English only can get a job.
How much experience is proven?
Well, it depends. You know, right now, if you would show me an IT recruiter with 1.5 years experience, who's passionate, creative on social media, and speaks English only, I could place them right now. In one or two fantastic organizations. It really depends. It's not all about the amount of experience. It's also about the quality of the person. But when we talk about the more experienced people, yeah, it's 3-4 years at the same organization. Normally in recruitment, you see that people have been promoted during that time as well, if they've been good. And yeah, in the professional space, I think these. Do
you look for a certain amount of, like, obviously we look at billings. It's very hard to translate that market to market. Do you like what's kind of considered good in the local market?
I mean, just how I qualify that is I try to understand from people what they did. And I always like to ask the people, where were you ranked in the organization? And what was number one doing? And especially, what was number one doing better than you? Like, what would you have had to do to become number one? Because I think there's a certain self-awareness. And do you understand what the difference is between the best and someone who's good? On the local market, if we talk about permanent recruitment, you know, a solid 360 recruiter will be doing 350, 400,000 per year in Swiss francs. So you're talking somewhere between 280 and 340,000 pounds per year. That's a decent, solid 360 recruiter. The top guys on the market will be doing 600, 700, 800,000 in the professional space. So again, you know, somewhere between 450 to 600,000 pounds a year. But as you say, it's hard to translate, and contracting can go through the roof. You have people billing more than $1 million.
Yeah, no. I usually just break it down to how many placements they're doing a month. And
in the professional space, one placement a month, 1.5 placements a month is a solid performer. Yeah,
the way I look at it usually is 1 to survive, 2's good, and 3's excellent. If it's in that category that isn't transactional, you know. So
it depends on the fees, and are they working purely on mandates, and how it structures in around that as well. But yeah,
what's the environment, the working environment there? I take it it's quite like London, is it, in many ways?
Not really, no. I'd say it's actually a lot more relaxed in most environments. And again, you asked me at the beginning, I've never worked in recruitment in London or in the UK or anywhere else for that fact. So it's very hard for me to make a comparison. My perception is very, very long hours, KPI crack whipping. But again, that's probably in the larger companies rather than the more boutique. And
I think it's also our generation as well. I think, like, you've been in recruitment a long time. A lot of companies have been forced to amend the way that they do it because people won't do it anymore. They won't just pick up the phone and because they're told to. But I think in London there is an expectation that you stay a little later. I think I get the same vibe from New York. Whereas in Australia, you're expected to start a little earlier.
Okay.
And then in Hong Kong, it's pretty long hours as well.
Yeah.
So
I think in to answer the question, in general, it's based on the company. The larger the organization, I think the more hours, the more old school in that sense, the setup, and the more boutique have a much better understanding of work-life balance, of flexibility. You know, I always try to bring that into the organizations where I was managing people. You know, that I give flexibility but expect it back. I don't care what time somebody starts in the morning as long as they do their work and hours during a day. We need to work towards that. Yeah.
How do you divide up your own time now between taking on searches and finding, just because everybody's after the same profiles, right? So like
poorly, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing. It's a very hard thing to do as a Rector Eck, because there's not a lot of commitment sometimes in the process. Like, everybody's after the same thing, and the candidates are kind of a bit hard to manage, and it's a tough one. Like, like right now, I get asked all day, "Oh, can you take on this? Can you do this? Can you do that?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can't really. I can't deliver all of this. So it's just very hard, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like any recruitment consultant. They have to prioritize the positions, and I've very quickly worked out who I want to work with, and I think I've not done business development in about 2 months. Even through
You've only been in business for 6.
I know, right? So it's fantastic. I only had to do 4 months of business development. No, but just the personal branding is really bringing a lot of generating a lot of business for me, both from the candidate and client side. So I have clients approaching me, which is brilliant. But ultimately, I need to try and squeeze every day time in for approaching candidates, for trying to attract them. I make everything personal, so there's no mass emailing or anything like that. And I try to do it in a very professional way and softly, and to build my business based on that. So but I know what you mean. Very, very tough to balance the time.
Will you go into Germany next, or are you going to just stick in Switzerland?
To be honest with you, I love the Swiss market, and that's really where I see my biggest value and focus. As soon as I think about other markets, obviously I don't see it as a way that I'm going to take the business. I think the Swiss market has enough there for me to do.
Lovely. All right, Lee, any questions for me before we rock on here?
No, I think maybe the last thing, because I mean, we talked about working from home and these things. This is what I wanted to ask you about. But why do you think Rhetoric is so important?
Why do I think? Well, in the same way that recruitment in general is, that if you're a client, will help you find somebody that can change your business.
Mm-hmm.
If the bit I like out of Director Eck is whenever I can follow some of the people I've placed on Instagram,
mm-hmm.
and I can see what their life was like in Oldham or whatever other shithole from the UK they're from, and now I see them in Santa Monica and in Sydney, and I see how I've helped change their life, and that's a real buzz. And I get messages off them. My life's amazing now. Thanks for encouraging me to do this move, and that's what I get the most buzz out of. So, if you can make a positive change, either to a business or to somebody's own personal outcome, then that's what makes the job in general great, not just recruitment to recruitment.
Yeah. Lovely. Great. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's such a hard place to navigate, to find people that can help you develop your business and grow the business. And yeah, I think there's nothing more satisfying than seeing you make an impact in someone's life. Yeah, absolutely agree.
All right. So any midweek snowboarding, or is it just the weekend?
Yeah, I think the sun is shining very, very bright from today onwards. So no, need to find some candidates. So back to the grind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming on. It was really interesting to figure out a bit more about the Swiss market and what's going on there. It's not been something I've even thought about. So, and I didn't know that English-speaking recruiters could go and make a living there. So really cool.
There you go. And I look forward to seeing you over here for a snowboarding session in the mountains soon.
Amazing. Can't wait. All right, pal.
All right,
catch you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Lee for coming on the podcast. I do wonder, people getting into Director Eck when they've got that background in technology recruitment, I think he's insane. If I could wind back the clock, I think I probably would have set up a good IT recruitment firm, especially if I had his background. But nevertheless, another person into the wonderful world of Director Eck, and we wish him the best. If any of you are interested in moving abroad, please do hit me up, whether that is to Europe or it's to America or Australia or Asia. We are all over the place, placing people all over the world every month, and we love it. So hit me up on that. All right, that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another amazing guest.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.